Hey everyone, welcome back. We're doing a deep dive today into, all the dynamics in the Middle East.
Oh, yeah.
It's really, it's fascinating right now.
Absolutely.
It's like all these plates are spinning.
Mm-hmm.
You've got, Erdogan making these power moves in Syria.
Right.
You've got Netanyahu, kind of consolidating Israel's power.
Mm-hmm.
It's so easy to look at them and be like, okay, they're the main characters in this whole story, right?
Big players.
But we found this analysis from Gideon Rachman in the Financial Times.
Okay.
And he's making this argument that we really need to, take a step back and look at the whole picture.
Interesting.
Because while everyone's watching Turkey and Israel,
Yeah.
Saudi Arabia might be the one to watch.
Huh. Okay, so it's not just about the immediate, military moves and the headlines.
Right.
It's about something else.
Yeah, it's so easy to get caught up in, okay, Erdogan's, building these alliances with these groups.
Oh, yeah, like Hayat Tahrir al-Sham.
Right.
The powerful jihadist group in the region.
Yeah, and he's really playing up this whole, Ottoman Empire thing. He's
Yeah.
trying to, recapture some kind of historical glory.
Trying to build a legacy.
Yeah, exactly. And then on the other side, you've got Netanyahu,
Right.
Being very strategic, portraying Israel's actions as defensive.
Sure.
But underneath it all, you can kind of sense this, larger ambition.
Yeah.
Maybe to, really capitalize on Iran's weakness right now.
Yeah, solidify their position.
Yeah, exactly.
But what Rachman does in this piece, he's like, hey, let's challenge those assumptions.
Okay.
The ones that you form just from reading the headlines.
Mm-hmm.
He says both Turkey and Israel,
Yeah.
these major players,
Yeah.
they both face limitations.
Okay, so what limitations are we talking about?
Well, for starters,
Yeah.
both of them are non-Arab powers,
Right.
operating in a predominantly Arab region.
Yeah, they're outsiders.
Exactly. And that creates this barrier
Yeah.
to them ever being truly accepted.
Oh, wow. So no matter how much, military power they have or economic power,
Doesn't matter.
there's always going to be that, underlying distrust.
It's like trying to lead a group that just sees you as different.
Right.
They'll never fully embrace you.
Yeah, you're always going to be on the outside looking in.
Exactly.
And then there's the whole economic side of things, too.
Oh, yeah. You can't forget about that.
Like Turkey's struggling with inflation.
Mhm.
And Israel, they're incredibly advanced technologically, but they're a small country.
Yeah.
They just don't have the resources to really dominate a region like that.
It's like trying to build an empire on a shoestring budget.
Yeah, exactly. You need serious cash to really shape a whole region.
Right.
And that's where Rachman's argument gets really interesting. He
Okay.
points to Saudi Arabia.
Saudi Arabia, what do they have to do with all this?
Well, think about it. While Turkey and Israel were grabbing headlines, Saudi Arabia quietly secured the 2034 World Cup.
The World Cup.
Yeah.
I mean, that's cool.
Yeah, that seems kind of random, right?
Yeah, what's that got to do with anything?
But Rachman suggests this signals a different kind of power play.
Different how?
It's not all about military might anymore.
Okay.
It's about something else.
So what are you saying?
I'm saying it's about financial power.
Ah, okay.
Rachman contrasts the two, military force versus financial power.
Right.
He argues that Saudi Arabia might not be as flashy or aggressive,
Right.
but their wealth gives them this unique ability to shape the future.
Oh,
They
interesting.
can invest in infrastructure development projects, cultural initiatives.
Things that win over people.
Exactly. It's about building relationships, goodwill,
Right.
while everyone else is focused on, short-term military gains.
Yeah, I see what you're saying.
It's subtle,
Mm-hmm.
but it could be incredibly effective.
And don't forget,
Yeah.
Saudi Arabia also controls a huge chunk of the world's oil production.
Oh, right. So they have leverage,
Big time.
not just in the Middle East,
Nope.
but globally.
Yeah.
It really makes you think, are we so focused on the explosions and the troop movements that we're missing this quieter
But potentially more powerful
force
force,
of economic influence?
especially coming from a country like Saudi Arabia.
Right. They've been very carefully cultivating their image,
Yeah.
expanding their reach all over the world.
It's a long game,
It is.
and they might just be winning it. And, it's not just about projecting this positive image.
Right.
They have very concrete geopolitical interests,
Mm-hmm.
especially in Syria.
Okay.
They've been cautious about Turkey and Israel getting too involved.
Makes sense. I mean, they don't want to see either one of them become too dominant.
Exactly. They've got their own goals,
Right.
and they're using their financial power strategically to achieve them.
So they're not just, sitting back and watching this all play out.
Not at all. Rachman uses this really vivid image.
Oh, yeah.
He says, while Turkey was celebrating the fall of Damascus,
Okay.
And Israel was busy, targeting the Syrian military.
Right, right.
Saudi Arabia was celebrating something else entirely.
What was that?
Being chosen to host the 2034 World Cup.
Okay, so you might be thinking,
Yeah.
the World Cup. What's that got to do with geopolitics?
Right. It seems completely unrelated.
But stick with me here because this is where things get really interesting.
Okay. I'm listening.
It's a powerful symbol, don't you think?
In a way, yeah. I mean, it's like they're saying, we're here.
Exactly.
We're a global player.
We're not just this regional oil power.
Right. We're shaping the future.
So it's not just about military action anymore.
Right.
It's about shaping the narrative, the image of the region.
And Saudi Arabia, they're playing that game very, very well.
Yeah, they're masters of it.
They're investing in their own vision for the Middle East.
Which is...
A vision that aligns with their interests.
Right, and probably sidelines their rivals in the process.
Potentially, yeah.
Yeah.
And think about it.
Yeah.
Their vision probably includes a major role for themselves in rebuilding Syria.
Oh, yeah, with all their wealth.
Exactly. They could easily outmaneuver Turkey and Israel when it comes to reconstruction.
And influencing the political landscape.
Oh, absolutely.
Mm.
They can offer aid investments, expertise in a way that neither of the others can match.
It's subtle, but man, it's effective.
It is a really effective form of power projection.
But isn't there a vulnerability for Saudi Arabia, too?
Well,
Like, what happens if oil loses its strategic importance?
mm-hmm.
I mean, the world is shifting towards renewable energy.
Yeah, that's a valid point.
Their economic leverage would diminish.
They're definitely aware of that risk.
So what are they doing about it?
They're taking steps to diversify,
Okay, how?
investing heavily in renewable energy themselves.
Oh, interesting. So they're not just ignoring the trend?
Nope, they're getting ahead of it.
Smart.
They're also investing in other sectors,
So-
like tech tourism.
So they're trying to position themselves as a leader.
Even in a post-oil world.
It's like they're hedging their bets.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Preparing for a future where their traditional power might not be enough.
That's impressive. It's like they're playing 4D chess while everyone else is stuck in checkers.
And that foresight, that adaptability, that's a form of power, too.
This is blowing my mind. It really makes you wonder, are we so focused on the military side of things that we're missing all these subtler power plays?
It happens all the time. We fixate on the explosions, the troop movements.
Right. It's all so dramatic.
But maybe the real action is happening in boardrooms and financial institutions.
You know what? I think you're right. It's like we've been conditioned to view power in this very narrow way.
Yeah, we think military territorial control.
That's the old playbook.
Right. But the 21st century, it's different.
It's about economic influence, cultural diplomacy.
Exactly. Strategic investment.
All these tools that don't involve, sending in the tanks.
Yeah, and in the long run, they might be even more effective.
Okay, so if this is the new game,
Yeah.
what does it mean for the average person living in the Middle East?
That's the million-dollar question.
Right? Like, will they be better off or worse off if Saudi Arabia becomes the dominant power?
It's hard to say for sure. I mean, there are potential benefits.
Okay, like what?
Well, Saudi Arabia has the resources to promote economic development.
Right, so there's potential for increased prosperity?
Exactly.
Yeah.
They could invest in infrastructure, education, healthcare.
All things that could really improve people's lives.
Absolutely. But then there's the political side of things.
Right, because Saudi Arabia isn't exactly known for its, democratic values.
That's true. They're an absolute monarchy.
So their vision for the region,
Yeah.
it's probably going to prioritize stability and control.
Over individual liberties and freedoms, most likely.
So they might crack down on dissent opposition,
It's possible. They might curtail free speech.
limit democratic participation.
It's a trade-off.
Yeah, economic prosperity in exchange for limited political freedoms.
That's a heavy thought.
It is, and it raises a lot of ethical questions.
Absolutely. This is something that people in the region and the international community are going to have to grapple with.
There's no easy answer.
And the stakes are incredibly high.
It really is complex, and it makes you think, what does this mean for the United States?
Oh, yeah.
They've been calling the shots in the region for decades. How do they adapt to a Middle East where Saudi Arabia is the big dog?
That's a tough one. I'm sure that question is keeping a lot of people in Washington up at night.
Yeah, I bet. If you're sitting in the White House,
Yeah,
this has got to be giving you a headache.
for sure.
Do you try to push back against Saudi Arabia? Or do you just accept that they're the new power broker?
It's a tough balancing act.
It is.
I mean, the U.S. has all these interests in the region.
Right.
Oil, counterterrorism.
Right, containing Iran.
Exactly. They can't just walk away.
But they also don't want to be supporting policies that clash with their values.
Exactly.
It's tricky. So maybe they need to change their approach.
Yeah, maybe.
Less focus on military intervention, more emphasis on diplomacy and economic engagement.
That could be a good start.
Build stronger relationships with other countries in the region.
Right. Work through multilateral organizations.
Yeah.
Use economic incentives.
All those things could help them maintain some influence.
Even as Saudi Arabia's power grows.
So maybe the U.S. becomes more of a facilitator, a mediator, instead of the one calling all the shots.
Exactly.
That takes a lot of flexibility, though.
Oh, yeah.
And a willingness to adapt.
The world is changing.
It is. And it's not just about the U.S. either.
Right.
Think about China, Russia.
Oh, yeah. They're going to have some adjusting to do, too.
What do you think their reaction is going to be to a more powerful Saudi Arabia?
Well, they both have their own ambitions in the Middle East.
They do?
China's been making all these economic deals. Russia's flexing its military muscles.
Yeah.
A stronger Saudi Arabia could really shake things up for them.
Yeah, it could make things more difficult.
Or could create new opportunities.
It depends how they play it.
Exactly.
It's like this giant geopolitical chess game.
It is.
All these players moving their pieces.
Vying for position.
And Saudi Arabia just made a really bold move.
They did.
I think this whole conversation has been a real eye-opener.
I agree.
It's made me realize how much the world is changing.
Yeah, it's easy to get stuck in the day-to-day news.
Right. You got to step back sometimes.
Like, look at the bigger picture.
And that's what Rachman's analysis helped us to do.
He challenged us to think differently about power.
Yeah, to look beyond just military might.
And see the rising importance of economic influence, strategic investment, cultural diplomacy.
And he made a really good case for why we should be paying attention to Saudi Arabia.
The
Middle East is changing.
It is.
And Saudi Arabia might be the one leading the way.
It's a story that's still unfolding.
It is.
It'll be fascinating to see what happens next.
All right, well, that wraps up our deep dive for today. But before we go, I want to leave you with this thought.
Okay.
If this is the new game in the Middle East, who do you think is going to win? And what's that going to mean for the world we live in?
Good questions.
Think about it, do some research, and let's continue the conversation.
That was good.
Until next time, keep exploring, keep learning,
Yeah.
and keep diving deep.